Welcome to the Event Debrief, the podcast where event professionals come together to unpack what really makes events work. Each episode breaks down expert-led debriefs, emerging tech, and industry insights to help you deliver more effortless events. So, let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Event Debrief. This is going to be another episode of our AI series, AI and Events. Very excited for today. We're going to change the conversation slightly, and we're going to look more boots on the ground as opposed to, what's the possibilities of AI. We recently surveyed just over 380 event planners around the world, and we found that three-quarters or more, a large majority of the planners were saying that they know the value of AI, they know it's important, they know we need to use it, but there's a huge gap when it comes to practical applications. People are asking the questions, how should I use it? Give us a simple area, give us a gap, give us a case study, show me where I can actually create real value with boots on the ground. So, which I'm a massive fan of that, and that's why I'm very excited for our session today. So we're very lucky we've got Grant Whitehead, co-founder of Wallfly on, who's an event expert and a tech expert and has got a wealth of knowledge on AI applications. And he spoke a couple of weeks ago about all these really great opportunities and areas he's using in. So I thought, what better than to bring Grant on the podcast and get him to share some examples of this and how he approaches in events and where he sees the real value sort of coming through to that as well. So without further ado, I might just hand it straight over to you, Grant, if that's all right. And I'd love to maybe hear a bit of background to yourself, and I guess what's sort of your role or what's your role in both AI and the events industry?
Yeah, sweet. No worries. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me. So my background is mostly in tech production, so is where it started. As a kid, I learned how to mix sound, and so I was like understanding how the soundboard works. From there, I kind of started mixing bands and getting an understanding of that. It was a natural progression to move into corporate AV. And so, of course, I just started into conferences and worked at the in-house at the Hilton Hotel in Adelaide for a few years. And so really just like every week we're doing events and conferences and seeing how it all runs, kind of always from the back of the room, but understanding from a AV production point of view. What happened though is I shifted into doing web development. I kind of fell into I got asked to cover for someone who was going away for a couple of weeks who built a bunch of websites and they didn't return. And so I fell into doing these website building and lots of sort of database integration and getting fancier and fancier with these sorts of tools. Now, at the same time, I still kept doing AV production. I was just kind of doing sort of a half and half role through that. And that was kind of the early 2000s. So what happened though, is that as we saw a shift from software-based, kind of installed on your computer-based services, we started to see this shift into web services, right? Where, so lots of this sort of web development was coming into play. I mean, Events Air was just like that, right? It used to be a PC app and then moved to now being, and primarily I'm a Mac user. And so I was very happy when Events Air moved to web, right? Because it just meant we could use it everywhere, open it in lots of windows and, that sort of stuff was really cool. But what I found was I started working on different tools and projects that were related to events. And so moved away from just building normal websites, because that starts to get automated now as well, and started building different tools that would work for events, live events, especially. So as AI started to come in just a few years ago, I was really quick to jump on it. I was like, this is amazing. There's a lot of possibilities here. And so let's start tinkering and see what happens.
Love that. I always think the any new technology, any new trend that sort of comes out, it's always the tinkerers that seem to sort of run ahead and forge the path. So great to hear. I think the first question I had before we sort of maybe jump into those case study examples and some things you've done, I guess, why do you think, from your experience in working with event planners in the events industry, why do you think that maybe AI feels slightly overwhelming to some of the industry?
Yeah, I think that for lots of people, the computer in general can feel overwhelming,
Mm.
right? Like just everything that it does and what's it doing now, and it's doing all these things by itself or seemingly, you know. And I think one of the things is it's a mind shift from of it being a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about this, like my dad is a builder, and he'll get the circular saw out. Now, a circular saw, I mean, even for me, I understand the basics of a circular saw. It's got a sharp blade on it.
Yeah.
It's got a trigger. It makes it go really fast, and it's really loud. But what it does is it just cuts. It cuts wood. Now, in Dad's hands, that cuts a really straight line, and it's great. You know, in my hands, it's all over the place, and it's dangerous. Right? It's dangerous to the material. It's dangerous to anyone standing around. Right? So, if we think about some of the tools, what is the tool itself? Is the tool itself dangerous? Not really. Right? It's in the hands of the craftsperson that drives that tool. And sometimes we feel like the computer is driving us. And when we can shift that to saying that this is just a tool and it will do what I tell it to do. And so, especially with AI, when we think about what large language models is really what we're talking about, which is essentially words and numbers. At the end of the day, it hasn't actually even learnt anything really. Like these large language models, what it's done is it's taken all of the world's words and numbers and put them together, and then it's now predicting what the most likely next word will be. So a series of algorithms, when you're asking it a question, it now says, okay, from the context of this question, I'm now going to put this word, and then most likely the next word is this one, and then this one, and then this one. And so I think when we think of it like that, it's a research tool. It's not this scary robot that's about to take over the world. It's simply taking humans' words and feeding them back to us in a way that we haven't been able to have before, in a filtered way which is incredible. I'm not trying to downplay it. I think it's incredible what it can do. But when we right size it, this tool is not going to go off and buy things on Amazon for you. It's not going to, and it's not going to take your job, right? Like, I think that's part of it too. There is a little bit of like, well, normally I spend a day a week doing this task. And I think people are telling me that AI could do it in minutes. What am I going to do for that whole day? And that's a scary concept. But
absolutely,
I think in general, for event planners, if we take a step back, we think what happened in event planners' life, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 years ago, you would have been receiving checks and you would have been getting registration forms in the mail, right? And there was someone who had to open all of those, process them, bank the checks, do some sort of aggregation of those registration forms, collate them somehow. Maybe it was digital, maybe it wasn't. But there was someone that spent days and days and days doing that. Now we don't sit back and go, gee, I miss those days when we used to bank checks and take those registration forms. Because at some point, Events Air came along and said, hey, you can do registrations online, cut out that manual process, have people enter the data themselves, and now it's all in one central collated place for you, and you can generate reports, and we'll take the payment, go straight to your bank account. Now, I'm saying that like that's a new thing. It's not at all, right? That was what Events Air cut its teeth on, and it's amazing that whole registration process is just incredible. But my point is, we're not thinking about, gee, I used to bank checks. I think in the same way as we talk about a couple of examples in a minute, I think it'll be the same, where it's like, oh yeah, I used to spend hours and hours doing this, and now I have a research tool that has sped up that process for me and made it work so well. There's one more thing I just want to add about event planners, and that is, what do you do with that extra day? Or I mean, maybe it's a few hours, right? Here's the point, is that event planners spend a lot of time in logistics, just just organizing, making a whole bunch of things happen. But at the end of the day, an event planner, I don't believe, is just doing logistics. I believe they are about curating or being the architect of human experiences. Right?
Yeah.
Now, whether that's in person or online, these people are creating human experiences. And so if there's a possibility that you could speed up some of the logistics, then you could spend more time in that creative space and the space where you're creating a human experience that's exceptional. Because sometimes we get to that the day before the event starts and we think, man, I wish I had more time to think about, planning this event or what, this social event or whatever it is, the part of your event. I wish I had more time because I spent so much time doing all this logistic stuff and these repetitive tasks. And now I've just ran out of time and now we'll just do what we've always done. If we had a bit more time, a little bit more time, we would think about how do we want people to feel when they come to our event, when they come into the ballroom or when they click on an online event, how do we want people to feel? And when we think about that, we start thinking about the human experience more so than the logistics, right?
Agreed. I was going to say, I feel like we spoke to Cameron McIntosh from Google Cloud the other day, who runs a lot of their events, and he said something similar as well. If it takes a 8-hour job and gets it done in 10 minutes, then it shouldn't be, what are we going to do with that? It should be, I think planners don't have enough time as it is. It should be a great thing. And I love that line of they're orchestrators of the human experience. And I completely agree with that. And I think let the AI do the annoying, frustrating, repetitive logistics side of things. So you can then craft, and I think you said it will move from the role of a planner will move from a project manager to an orchestrator or to an architect, I think you said as well. I think that's the creativity, let humans do what humans do best and connect with humans and run the really great experiences. So I'm really, really excited by it. I can see why that hesitation is there, but I think I only see sort of good things sort of coming from this. Great. All right. Well, we'll jump in and you got a couple use cases there, but I think maybe just to sort of frame it for everyone listening, how do you, in a couple of points, I guess, how do you identify AI opportunities in events? So is it, throwing some magic AI dust on it, or do you sort of start from the very inception point? And what does that sort of look like for you?
Yeah, I think any time that I'm doing a task that's words and numbers based, right, and that is repetitive, and pretty straightforward, I think this could be a good candidate for AI to do this for me, and so, I mean, I tend to think about, often to a fault, there are sometimes I've been caught where I'm trying to build an automated process and it's going to take me 5 or 6 hours to build the automated process. And then someone steps in and says, it's going to take 2 hours to do this manually, right? And I'm like, oh no, but that's a cool tool. We can do, we can do this. And so, but there are certain things that we can just spend a lot of time, and the longer that task is, the more risk there is to human error. Right, like it's more likely that we're gonna get a keystroke wrong, or we're copying and pasting something incorrectly. We put it in the wrong field, and we pick it up later, and it's a really annoying at that point. That's one of those things where we're like, it's a repetitive task. AI could do it and perfectly. Well, now this is worth us exploring AI doing it.
Awesome. I was going to say that, and I agree too. I think there's almost a bell curve there, right? Like you're saying, repetitive numbers and letters. And sort of simple, straightforward stuff. And I think, you're right, because I did one the other day where I tried to figure out a way to, I think on Excel, to have a formula that changed all these rows exactly what I wanted, and there was 10 rows. And by the time I got to the end of it, I thought it would have taken me 2 minutes to do this just by myself. So I think being sort of making sure that it's a once-off, simple task, maybe just do it yourself versus a long-term, repetitive, ongoing process. Maybe that's worth looking at AI.
Totally. Yeah,
awesome. And so, and I guess with that process, jumping sort of straight into it, do you have any use cases? Do you have any examples of like how you've actually done this for some events?
Yeah, I tell you where it's amazing is email, the copy that goes into an email. And so what I have started to do is, sometimes we get the schedule. We talk about how busy we are in event planning, and we get to this point where we're like, oh man, we should have already sent an email out, but I just haven't quite got the content. I just haven't got the headspace to get that copy right yet. I can't just copy it from a previous event. It really needs some specific things in it. So there's two aspects of AI that I think are really helpful for this. One is, as I'm saying, actually creating the copy, like here's what I want to say. But the other part of it is particularly with, with all the models, they often have a chat feature like Audible, right? Like just speaking it out. And what I have found is I can go for a walk or even while I'm driving, and I can just get my random thoughts out. Okay, I need to create a schedule for the emails that go out to all the attendees. We're going to need to send probably 4 or 5 or 15, 20 or whatever it is. And what I want is a schedule. So help me work out what's the most important thing to say a month out or 6 weeks out or whatever it is. And then help me build on that to what's important 2 weeks out and 1 week and 1 day and whatever, right? So now it's going to start asking you questions. Okay, so what would you first would probably say a good schedule is this, and yada yada yada, and then it'll say, okay, so what would you like to have in the first? What are the specifics of the first thing? And now you're just chatting, you're just talking it through, and ums and ahs, and oh no, maybe not this, but maybe this, and yes, let's do this and let's do that. And then it's going to give you back a really succinct answer of taking what you just said and putting it into a few sentences. And now not only are you working on the copy, but you're also working out your whole schedule. So after all, you've gone for a walk or a decent drive, you're going to have a full schedule with all of the copy all written for you. And now you're in a place where you can just copy and paste that into EA and have all the schedule done. Like you could be 3 months out and you've now planned and actually scheduled all of your email comms, and it's all done. And I think a particular aspect of this is important now in the attention world that we're in, the desperate grab for attention always. Email is getting less and less effective, right? Because it's so noisy. Noisy, even from all the people that you're wanting to get email from. There's just so much noise. And so there's a tendency when we come to events that we want to tell them the 20 things they need to know about, because it's so important, this, and then you got to do that, and then you got to do this, and make sure you do that. And it's so much noise. People will just like, I can't take that in right now.
Tuning out for it. Yep.
Yeah. And so one of the things that AI can really help you with is saying, here are the 20 things. Help me prioritize those. And help me find the 3 things that people must know and put that right at the top. Yep. If you don't read this whole email, here's the 3 things you need to know. This is where you need to be. This is what you this is the link you need to have, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And so now some people are going to be so excited for your event, they're going to read every word twice, right? But really busy people and whatever are going to see those 3 things, and at least you've pushed that across to them.
Yep.
But also, once you've got all of that content, you can say, let's put this into bullet points, and also let's just have some headers, right? So if someone skims down the email, they see those, few 3 or 4 headers, and something might grab their attention. They start seeing a couple of the dot points. They're not reading prose and prose and prose and in paragraphs and paragraphs. They're just like, okay, yep, that makes sense. That, yep, great, got it. I'll come back to this, and so I think it was Mark Twain who said that if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter.
Yes. I love that.
And I really love that too, because it does make sense. It's harder. The less you do, getting that really concise takes more time. AI is brilliant at that. Right.
I think also, sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say, that's like I completely agree with that. I think that sometimes when we write, as you said, correspondence or those sorts of things, I think it's sometimes it's you thinking out loud too. Even when you're writing, because you get halfway through when you actually, no, I forgot about this, and I love your point there about talking to the AI, because then it lets you, like, I'm a thinker that thinks out loud. Like I do something very similar where I think of an ideas and I put it on record on AI on ChatGPT, for example, and I just talk through my
Yep.
mind, and I change my mind halfway through it, and I go back, and then exactly to your point, and then I'll say, well, what did I just say that? Or can you sort of summarize that in a really succinct point?
Yeah.
And you're right. I think attention is absolutely fleeting. So that's a great way to put it.
I had a great example of that was I got sent a questionnaire
Hmm.
that was going to be made into like a social media post. And so
Mm,
I knew that of the 10 questions, really it was like a sentence, at best, maybe a few words for some of the answers. But
mm,
I didn't have the time to be like, this is going to take me a couple of hours to work
hmm,
through all of that. I went for a 20-minute walk. So what I literally did is I took the questionnaire, I
hmm,
copied it, I pasted it into ChatGPT, and then I turned on the talk feature and
hmm,
put my phone in my pocket and went for a walk. And I said,
mm.
ask me a question one at a time. And so it asked me a
Wonderful.
question, and I gave it like a 3 paragraph answer. And then it gave me a one sentence, summary of that. And every
Wonderful.
time, I kid you not, every time I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I think. Like,
Wow.
yes, it didn't feel like it was sort of impersonating me or it was
Mm,
someone else. It
mm,
was my words, just more concise. And after a 20-minute walk, it was done. Emailed it
mm,
and it was done. Like that, those sorts of things can be so frustrating, but
mm, mm.
you want to do it. Someone from the team's asking, can you do this? Can you do that? When you can grab something like that, I mean, it's super powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, as you're saying, like, the other thing you've mentioned there too that I think sometimes gets overlooked is, not that we're trying to squeeze every drop of efficiency out of our lives, but I think that's a really interesting point when you're driving, to an extent, or when you're going for a walk or walking the dogs. Like I
Mm,
do something very similar as well. As if I had to sit down and type something, I have writer's block, and I and R and procrastinate and
mm,
getting over that first hurdle. But I think having that point and just start blurting and thinking out loud as I drive home, and sort of some ideas, and I get back, and after 20 minutes I'm like, can you summarize that in a few points? And it's like, wow, that's exactly what I was thinking, and I would have sat there in front of
yeah,
the computer redrafting it 6 times before I started.
100%.
So yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
great.
I think a general rule of thumb, particularly in this world where there's this term called AI slop, which is just
Mm,
like generated like bunch of writing, a bunch of videos, a bunch of
mm,
music, a bunch of, and it's just more and more and more content.
mm,
I think a general rule of thumb is use AI to create less, not more.
mm,
It's like we don't just need more words for the sake of it.
mm,
Often it's going to be very good at making it more succinct and more punchy.
mm,
And so let's not just have an email with 5 paragraphs when it can
mm.
be 5 dot points,
Yes.
because people are going to receive it better. And we've got a bit of an AI detector, I think most people are picking up when you're
Mhm.
like, Alex never sounded like this in an email.
Mm.
It's like,
He's way too polite in this
suddenly,
email.
yes, suddenly he's writing me a page when he used to
Yeah,
give me just 1 paragraph.
yeah,
And he's
yeah.
like, he's using all these other words and, like it, and not that it just doesn't sound, it often can be very wordy. And so
Yes.
that's where I like to say, no, more concise or half the length of that, or,
Yes.
no, put it into dot points or whatever. So I think less is more.
Awesome. Absolutely. I was going to say before I ask you for the next sort of use case, the other thing was, as you were saying, the correspondence side. I think that's like by far one of the most valuable use cases. But something to your point about being concise, and I use AI constantly, is I'll take the contents of that email and I'll say, give me a three word subject title, right? Because I think that's an
Mm,
art in itself. Because to your point,
mm,
we're flooded. Like, I've got too many emails every single day, and I think I usually check the first one. I think they said something like on average it's point 3 seconds to 3 seconds people
yeah,
give an email, even a familiar email, of is it
yeah.
worth my time? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Is it a message, or is it a notification I don't really care about? And they'll judge it on the first three letters, three words. They'll have there. So if it's um, extreme events and all this fancy stuff, no one cares. But if it's like Grant
Yeah.
event timetable. And you're like, oh, I'll check this out. This sort of might be interesting. So yeah, I think using that, I would say
Love
summarize
that.
me a couple of examples of subject titles. I think that's helped me immensely. Um,
That's cool.
awesome. Okay. I was going to say, do you have another use case? I'd love to hear something on the ground you've used or you've implemented that's really saved a lot of time.
Yeah, I tell you another really cool example, and with events air as well, was sometimes we'll have an event and it's pre-registration, and we now want to test a bunch of stuff. We want to test the
Mm,
mobile app, or we want to test the registration process, or particularly things that are beyond the registration process, and some of the
hmm
apps or some of the processes and checking in or whatever it is. And so we don't have any attendees at that point.
mm,
So often, like you go there and you create a couple of attendees, and they've only a couple of fields are filled in, and like it's just very basic.
hmm
So it's a good example of like, give me a whole bunch, like give me 20 um, attendee data in a
mm,
spreadsheet, and I'll just import it, and then I can just delete it afterwards. So my
mm,
go-to for dummy data like this is The Simpsons,
mm,
and so and so I'll say, give me 20 Simpsons characters,
mm,
and here are the fields. I can just copy it, or even do a screenshot of what's amazing with screenshots. Take a screenshot of the contact, all the fields in EA.
hmm hmm
I plug that into ChatGPT and I say, I want something in each one of these fields for 20 Simpsons characters, right? And like a
Interesting.
minute a minute later, I've now got a spreadsheet, and I've got dietary requirements, I've got social media
Mm,
links, I've got phone numbers, I've got everything, right? So
wow.
now I just import that into Events Air, and now I've got some
Mm,
great test data for my event. I
mm,
can I can see, okay, what would this person look like when they go to the app? Oh yeah, okay, and I
mm,
can I can see all their data's there, or and now I want to test the dietary requirements portal. Oh, there it all
mm,
is. I can see
mm,
that Homer Simpson, has a
mm.
gluten intolerance, right? Um, and so it's brilliant at doing that type of thing where it can just generate a bunch of stuff for you.
Yep.
Um, you know, maybe at a later time I can talk about how I connected ChatGPT with Events Air directly and just got it to update it itself. But that was an advanced level
Wow.
move. But
Wow.
the spreadsheet, doing it just through a spreadsheet, there it
Mm.
all is. Import it, and away it goes. That's another really cool use case of AI.
That's awesome. That's really cool. There was even as you're saying that too, I think, and I think testing is a really good application, as you said, like dummy data and sort of trying to
Mm.
find where the gaps are. Something like that on the back of that, and I've hearing more and more people sort of do this. If it's it could be an email, it could be, as you said, the dietary, seating plans, or it could be other areas,
Yep.
accommodation, travel, and it's so cool. You can use screenshots, and I take a screenshot of something, whether it's a creative or a logistic, and put in there and say, like, if you were an event planner or if you were an attendee at this event,
Yeah.
what feedback would you have, or what gaps am I not seeing that you would highlight to me? And it's quite good. I mean, I
Yeah.
use ChatGPT a bit, but to your point, they'll say something like, okay, you've got your seating plan, but I've sort of noticed they could be blocking the seating over here. It could be something you're like, wow, okay, wow, I didn't think about that. And there's like that extra bit of hopefully you got some colleagues there or a friend you can sort of lean on, but failing that, you can always go and say, like, what have I missed here? So I think that's a fantastic use case. I'm cautious of time, but I thought, do you have
Yeah.
anything else, any last sort of points there, or any other applications you're currently using, I guess, that you're excited to try?
Yeah, look, I think back to the circular saw analogy. In order to get good at it, you're going to start small. Like,
Mm,
in order for me to cut a really long piece of wood, I'm going to have to start with a little small one, and
mm,
just get more confident with it. And so
mm,
it's actually just starting. I do think that talking is very natural, can be very natural way of just getting a lot of data in quickly.
mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
different. I mean, like voice to text has been around for a really long time. But I do think that this is different because it's able to filter out a bunch of ums and ahs and, repeating words or saying totally the wrong, oh no, I don't mean that, I mean this or whatever.
mm,
it can filter all through that and get to the core of what you're talking about. I think it's a great way to start. And if you were just to ask just some pointers on, there's one thing that I've done, you ask about some other stuff that I've been doing lately, and that is connecting to Asana. I use Asana as my project management tool. There's lots of different project management tools, and they often have your task list, to-do list. And I move around sections and put things into today. It's like, this needs to happen today. But probably like most people, you end up with not just 3 things you want to do today, but 25 things you want to do today. And it's not possible. I've now got ChatGPT talking directly to Asana. It's just an integration you can do. And now I can say, of the 25 things, help me determine what is the most important.
Wow.
And it's probably going to choose a couple of things that it's sort of guessing, that might be, but it's also going to say, what rating would you give this of a priority level, or what about this, or what's the low hanging fruit? What's the 5-minute job that you could just smash a couple of those and feel like you've got a win before you smash out a 3-hour job or whatever it is. And so using it sort of as an assistant, I think it's kind of framing it in your mind. If it's a research tool, it's a research tool. It's a copy editor. It's someone to bounce ideas off of. 100%. It can research things. Go and like the agent research tool that you can do in lots of them. You're able to say, hey, we're doing an event in Perth. Can you research restaurants that are nearby that XYZ have these, certain things. And it'll go away for 10 minutes, 15 minutes and come back and give you a bunch of stuff. And those sorts of things are incredible, because some of the results you're going to be like, no. But then you'll be like, okay, oh yeah, I forgot about that restaurant. I forgot about that one. Like, I mean, that's just so valuable. So I encourage you, start thinking, it was kind of like Google when we started getting used to searching for things. You start thinking in search strings. You got into where it was like, what's the phrase I'm going to use when I get back to the computer? I'm going to put this phrase into Google and it's going to give me the best result. I think similarly now, and lots of people are finding, instead of going to Google, they're going to AI, and they're saying the same sort of thing, but they're getting a much better result, and they're not having to click through 5 websites to get that result. They're getting it straight there. And so I just think, find a few little things that you can do throughout the day. Like you might have Google open, have AI open, and just give it a try. And I think you'll be surprised with the results.
Absolutely. And particularly too, you're saying that back and forth, it'll probably prompt you with things to say, what's your priority, or what sort of restaurants are you after, all those sorts of things. And a couple of iterations, I think it's definitely getting powerful, all of those tools. But fantastic. No, that's awesome. As I say, we could go for another hour, but I might leave it there, keep it short and sweet. But thank you so much, Grant. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the podcast.